In 1087, a small fleet of Italian sailors landed on the coast of what is now Turkey, broke into a church, smashed open a tomb with a crowbar, and stole a skeleton. That skeleton now lives in a shopping mall. Sort of. Most people assume Santa Claus is a gentle fairy tale loosely inspired by a kind bishop who gave gifts to the poor. A charming origin story. Wholesome. Predictable. What nobody tells you is that the entire global Santa industry traces back to a violent relic heist, a smash-and-grab job, that went down almost 1,000 years ago. Without that robbery, no Sinterklaas, no stockings, no reindeer. Christmas as we know it would be unrecognizable. The dead man in question was Nicholas, a 4th century bishop from Myra, a Greek city in Asia Minor. He was famous for secret gift-giving, throwing bags of gold through windows to save girls from slavery, that sort of thing. When he died, the locals buried him in a perfectly nice tomb, and for 7 centuries, he stayed there. Then the Seljuk Turks swept into Anatolia. Myra became a Muslim-controlled city. Back in Italy, a port town called Bari smelled opportunity. Relics were not religious trinkets, they were economic engines. A saint's bones drew pilgrims, pilgrims spent money, and money built cathedrals, funded armies, and made cities powerful. Bari wanted a flagship saint. Nicholas was the target. In the spring of 1087, Bari dispatched a small armed expedition, merchants and sailors, not priests, to Myra. They entered the church, demanded the tomb be opened, and when the handful of monks present refused, the crew produced hammers and iron bars. They cracked the sarcophagus, scooped up the bones, and dropped them in a wooden chest. The body gave off a sweet, oily scent, which the thieves took as a sign of divine approval. It also smelled like money. The raiders ran for their ship, chased by furious locals, and sailed home with a dead bishop in the hold. When the boat landed in Bari, the reception was less religious ecstasy and more civic frenzy. The town promptly split into armed factions over where to house the relics. A basilica was founded almost immediately. Construction started within 2 years. The bones went on public display. And then something strange happened. The tomb began to leak a clear, fragrant liquid, still seeping today, called the manna of St. Nicholas. The church bottles it. Pilgrims drank it. The miracle of St. Nick was flowing, literally, and Bari raked in pilgrims from across Europe. Now here's the pivot. Nicholas had always been a saint of sailors and children, but his cult was a regional Eastern thing. After the Bari heist, his fame exploded across Western Europe. Shrines multiplied. Traditions formed. In the Low Countries, the feast of St. Nicholas on December 6th became a huge public holiday. Children left out shoes for Sinterklaas, a figure who rode a horse, carried a big book of good and bad deeds, and doled out presents. When Dutch colonists sailed to the New World, they took Sinterklaas with them. In the American colonies, the Dutch were a minority, but their saint stuck. By the early 1800s, the name had blurred from Sinterklaas into Santa Claus. In 1809, Washington Irving published a satire describing St. Nicholas as a jolly man smoking a pipe and flying over treetops in a wagon. Then, in 1823, the anonymous poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, you know it as The Night Before Christmas, added the sleigh, the reindeer, the chimney, and the bag of toys. The bishop from Myra, who had been dead since 343, was now a round elf in a fursuit crashing through the sky. Illustrator Thomas Nast drew him for Harper's Weekly during the Civil War, giving him the workshop, the North Pole, and the list of naughty and nice. Coca Cola ads in the 1930s fused the image into the red-suited icon we know today. Every single thread in that tapestry, the sleigh, the beard, the milk, and cookies, leads back to a moldering crypt in southern Italy. A crypt the saint never chose. And there's one more thing. Bari was not the only city that wanted a piece of the saint. About a decade after the Bari raid, during the First Crusade, a Venetian force stopped at Myra and claimed they found the remaining bones, the fragments the first crew had left behind. Venice built its own church, on the Lido, and for centuries insisted they had the real St. Nicholas. Bari, naturally, said Venice was full of liars. For 800 years, the two cities bickered over which of them owned the man who delivers toys to millions of children. Then science got involved. In the 1950s, an anatomist named Luigi Martino examined the Bari bones. He reconstructed a full skeleton, but several small bones were conspicuously missing. Later, in 1992, the same expert examined the Venice remains. The Venetian bones were exactly the fragments missing from the Bari set. They fit together like puzzle pieces. The body of Santa Claus, the single most recognizable folk figure on Earth, is physically split between two rival Italian port cities that despise each other. One saint. One crowbar. Two halves. Two cities still cashing in. Bari's basilica pulls thousands of pilgrims and tourists every year. Venice runs a church of St. Nicholas that quietly charges admission. The man who was meant to embody anonymous charity now fuels a tourism economy, his bones serving two masters, 9 centuries after a bunch of sailors cracked open his grave. So when you hear sleigh bells, or watch a mall Santa hoist a toddler onto his lap, remember that the real St. Nicholas did none of this. He was a bishop in a dusty Roman province who gave away his inheritance. The jolly man in the fursuit, the reindeer, the cookies, the billion-dollar industry, all of it grew from a moment in 1087 when a few men with a crowbar decided a dead saint was worth more in Bari. No bones, no basilica. No basilica, no Sinterklaas. No Sinterklaas, no Santa. The most magical figure in your childhood was literally stolen. And the evidence is still there, in 2 marble boxes, waiting for the next holiday.